Hey guys, Chris Dennison here from Dirt Rider. I'm with Chris Kiefer and Ricky Yorks and 2013 450 MX Shootout. Let's talk about that KTM 450 SXF. So just to preface it, the bike is wildly different than the 2012. 2012 was carbureted, a lot of changes. We saw it in a mid-year model release that was the Ryan Dungey Factory Edition, which is basically the bike that KTM made so he could have something to win on. And it's pretty sick. I think a lot more positive reviews this year coming in, but Ricky's kind of rolling his eyes when I say that. So just give us your overall impression of the bike.
I mean, I had some mixed reviews. You know, there's definitely some awesome components on the bike. I've always been a fan of the hydraulic clutch and amazing strong front brake. But just some things that don't fit my riding style. It just takes me out of all the bikes. The KTM takes me the longest to get comfortable on. You know, I hop on every bike, and when 1 or 2 laps, I'm hitting everything and going kind of race pace. The KTM takes me, maybe 15, 20 minutes to feel like that.
Yeah, and that's something we heard from a lot of testers. It takes a little bit longer to adapt to the KTM, but once you do, you start seeing some of the things that our guys really like. You know, we described the never-ending top end. The thing basically revs to the moon. Kiefer, tell us about the motor.
Yeah, the motor's one of my favorite points on the bike. It's really easy to ride, super smooth for me, and yeah, that motor does really want to rev. You think you want to shift, but you actually in second gear you can let it rev out a little bit longer. I changed the gearing on the bike to a 1350. I don't know offhand what stock was, but I went to a 1350 gearing setup, and it actually made the transition from second gear to third gear a lot better. And actually, not knowing, it actually made the shock feel better too. Coming out of a corner, it didn't have so much load on it, so it didn't ride so low, and it felt a lot better for me. So that was a good change, and the motor is just, to me, it's just easy to ride. It's a better feeling, smoother power than last year, and I liked it a lot.
Right, and you weren't the only guy who commented on the gearing too. Stock gearing is 1452, so it's basically tooth and a half that you went. And Ricky, what are your thoughts? I mean, also from an overall perspective, because we had some vets out there. We had full beginners riding this bike.
Yeah.
How do you think the motor applies to every bike?
I think, right off starting the motor, I think everyone liked the electric start.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, the days of starting your bike are, I don't know if it's coming to an end or KTM's just the first one to kind of jump on that, but it's awesome to take your bike off the stand, hit a button, and like Kiefer was saying, that the motor is just solid, from bottom to top, and with a ton of over rev top end power. So
Tell them about the carburetor that you like though still.
I did like the actual 2012 carb version. I thought that it had a little bit of more of a hit to it, where the 13 is more linear power, which is smoother, and Kiefer liked the Honda as well, which I thought was a little on the smooth,
right.
mellow side. I think the KTM has a harder hit and more power than the Honda, but definitely smooth roll-on power that Kiefer likes, and I like a little more aggressive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, smooth for sure. And I think one thing that's kind of unfortunate is a lot of guys get caught up in the KTM's handling. The traits are maybe a little bit unique, a little bit different than a Japanese bike, and so people kind of can't see past the power just for the handling and how it's a little bit awkward. But honestly, our guys, we have good test riders, and we have a pretty good overall opinion of the handling of the bike. I guess, Kiefer, you can explain best the balance and the suspension, because we had some guys talking about a harsh feel in the fork. Was it soft? Was it stiff? Was it just harsh, flat out? How do you describe it?
Yeah, a lot of guys get confused. They don't know if it's I feel a harsh point, so I must be bottoming, or it's too stiff. They really don't know which way to go. So, but for me, the KTM was just too soft all the way around for me and my riding ability. I'm 170 pounds without gear, and I ride pretty smooth, and I'm not really a hammerhead type of rider, but still, it was still a little bit too soft. I think the fork was too far on the stroke sometimes, and it made the bike feel harsh. I could never really come into a corner how I wanted to, because I would get a lot of deflection, and that wasn't really good for me. I really had to find more smoother lines and really be picky with my line choice, just because I didn't want to hit a certain bump. The benefit of the newer bike is it's predictable. Still feels harsh, but previous year's bikes, or previous year's KTM, was more of a, you hit the same bump every lap and it never did anything the same. This is more of a right direction for KTM. It's still harsh for me, but at least it's a little bit more predictable. So.
Yeah, slightly more consistent.
And I really didn't have a problem with the shock at all. I think the shock was really good coming out of a corner. Once that gearing change, I actually really liked the shock a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I felt the same thing you felt with the fork. I mean, I would feel it kind of landing when you come up a little short on something. You could feel the fork blow through in a spot where it just shouldn't be going all the way through the stroke. But I agree, the shock is pretty good. That thing has a soft seat, and Ricky, kind of tell us a little bit about the fit and finish. I mean, seat is one, because guys feel the frame rail hit them in the butt, but what else bugged you? What did you like about the bike?
Well, the seat, it seems like every year that's the only bike we do a mid-seat change, midday, I guess. Try to always search for a fresh seat that's, stiff foam in it.
Yeah.
And fin finish, I think KTM's always been really quality. Like, they have really nice hubs on it, and just a lot of quality components that you don't maybe see the Japanese bikes putting into, which, it's definitely a bonus when you're spending big bucks on a 450. You want some quality, good-looking equipment on it.
Yeah, the brakes are amazing. It's hands down the best brakes out of all bikes right now.
Definitely.
To me, I think they should have kept the orange Dungy frame. I think the bike looks sick with the orange frame.
Yeah, that was
with
killer.
That darker frame, just wasn't into it.
I think it's like a gray now.
Yeah, so the orange frame really make the bike pop, and I wish they would have stuck with that.
Yeah, and the Dungy influence is cool. You can't ignore the bike's success on the racetrack. I mean, he's been killing it.
Yeah.
Obviously, overseas, the bike is hugely popular. And York's touched on big bucks. That thing is expensive, man. If you're 16-year-old kids, you gotta mow some lawns to get a KTM 450 these days.
Yeah, if you're in SoCal, you got rich parents, that's okay.
Yeah, perfect. How do I find some of those?
Yeah, exactly.
So for me, I think the bike is in my top 3. I got it to work well. Had some success dialing in the suspension, finding a good setting and everything. But do you guys agree? I mean, where's it stack up, Ricky?
For me, it was a little lower on the list. It just like minor things, and it could be better for me. But stock form, it wasn't my favorite.
Last place bike?
It was my last place bike, but it's kind of a harsh sounding, finish. But
Let's say 5th place.
the
It's
bike,
top 5.
the bike's good, but it just out of the other 4, they suited me better.
Kiefer, how about you?
Yeah, it's at the bottom of my list, but it's actually moved up. It was closer to the Yamaha. I think the Yamaha and the KTM were close for me in the bottom, but they're moving in the right direction, and they're not as far down on the list. Yeah, they're 5th, but they really are 5th. They're not last, So from 5th to 1st is pretty close, And before we'd be like, KTM, we gotta ride the KTM. Now it's like, cool, man, we ride the KTM, it's good. With the changes that I made the bike handle way better. So I'm excited for the future, what they're gonna have. They're gonna keep improving. Seems like out of all the manufacturers nowadays, KTM is the only one with money as far as, improving the product, developing, doing stuff to it. All the other manufacturers may be a little bit stagnant, so they might be creeping up on some other guys here pretty soon.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously, we're just 3 guys. I mean, out of the whole shootout, we take into account everybody's opinion, from the beginners, the novices, the vets, everything. So that's kind of the skinny what we thought of the KTM 450. You can stay tuned to the magazine to see the overall shootout, how it stacked up, and also watch the other videos. We've got impressions on all the bikes.